So, the question that we like to ask all of our guests is when was the first time you felt something on a soul level?
I think for me, it was I grew up partly in Hong Kong in China, and I from a French Catholic family. So I was doing a catechism retreat with a priest, and because we were in Hong Kong, we went to a Buddhist temple to actually do the retreat. And that's my first. I was, I think, between 11 and 13. And that's my first exposure to meditation, to kind of standing still in your body and taking time to actually or experiencing that feeling of stepping out of the body, leaving the mind, and kind of connecting to some sort of energy that's greater than yourself, and to kind of more of the deeper source of who you are. And that was my first, what I didn't really truly understand it at the time, but I definitely remember it as being one of the first times.
Wow. What was that experience like? Was it something like a feeling? Was it a knowing? Did you get any messages?
Yeah, for me, it was more a feeling of, I don't remember getting messages or knowing. It was definitely that feeling of just quieting the mind, and that elevation outside of your body, that kind of out of body experience. Um, yeah, I think it's the type of thing you have to experience to understand, but
Yeah.
it is definitely a feeling. And actually, I recently, throughout my practice, I am starting to get more visions, but it's only recent. It has been a feeling until now.
Hmm. I love that. I find that this usually comes up when we do our Reiki trainings, and I guess it's top of mind because we're in one right now. And the feeling,
Okay.
I think, is the most universal intuitive hit that we get. Is that sensation. But I also feel like that as healers is that feeling. Did you start to notice, because you had this awareness now that there's this feeling in your body, did that start to show up in other areas of your life and expand?
At the time, honestly, I'm not sure. I think it was a first exposure, and then that kind of drew me back to yoga, Ayurveda, 15 or so years later.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
when was that first time that you started to go into yoga and Ayurveda?
Um, I was in college, but it was very much with the Western approach to yoga, which was, it's just a type of sport that's an extension to classical ballet, which I used to do when I was a kid. Um, but it's not until I actually moved to New York that I discovered the holistic and spiritual side of yoga. And then Ayurveda, when I did my yoga teacher training program in an ashram in India, where a bunch of people were doing panchakarmas. And back then, I thought it was only a massage technique or a cleansing technique. I didn't understand it was a full-on holistic health system. So then it took like another 8 years for me to go back to Ayurveda because of digestive issues, and then realize the principles of the science were so applicable to everyday stressors and everyday life that I decided to become a practitioner, and really just start my journey of democratizing Ayurveda to the Western woman, which is
Mm.
where we are now. Almost. Yeah.
I love that. I didn't know, or maybe I did, but I forgot that you started with classical ballet and you did it as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
Go ahead.
Why did you as well, or?
Yeah, I grew up dancing my whole life, and for
Oh,
I was
really?
like
I had no idea.
I was a competitive dancer, so like what you see on Dance Moms, that was very much my life. And I did a
You
lot
must
of
have been so
ballet.
cute.
Oh my God, I have a lot of videos I could show you. But I did a lot of ballet because you need the technique and whatever, no matter what form of dance you're
Yeah.
doing. But I love it. It's such a beautiful. Have you ever gotten back to ballet like now?
No, because I grew up in a pretty rigid traditional family, and so I think ballet brought too much of that rigidity back into my life, and I think yoga gets me to express corp like with my body, with without having that rigidity. I mean, there is
Yeah.
some sort of masculine rigidity to yoga a little bit, but with all of the breath work, whether you're doing Kundalini or just pranayama, and the feeling you get on the mat after a yoga class is something that I never got after ballet, at least for me, just because, there was an authority in ballet and I had enough authority growing up.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny that like dance is this most feminine form of creativity. And in the West, at least, like it can be really taken into this very masculine energy and structured and rigid and have to be like one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful outcome to aesthetically to watch it. It's beautiful. I think to practice it. I mean, I think it depends on, I'm sure some ballet dancers are obviously obsessed with the process and are really in the flow when they're dancing. I think for me, I found that more into yoga and actually I used to do flying trapeze and I went back to it a couple of years ago, but realized I was way too old for it. My back was just not supple anymore to bounce flip forward and backwards enough to actually get on the trapeze, that after one session I was like, okay, let's go, just stick with yoga and I'll fulfill my acrobatic needs through yoga.
Oh my God, that's so cool. That makes so much sense with your aesthetic, with you and your brand. Of like, now I'm thinking of like all the pointed toes and everything, like the perfect angles. It makes so much sense.
Oh yeah, that's true. I actually never made that connection, but thanks for making it. Yeah.
Something we were talking about before we jumped on the podcast is that you just came back from a whole week retreat at the Joe Dispenza's retreat, and I'm gonna try not to ask so many questions because I don't want to make this whole podcast about that. But what was like your biggest breakthrough moment, if you've had time to reflect? I know you're like fresh coming back from it.
Yeah, we could definitely do a whole podcast about this. I think there were many breakthroughs. I think one, I learned about quantum physics. So for people who don't know Joe Dispenza, he's a chiropractor who teaches a type of meditation that's designed to help you change your energy in order to change your life. So it's a little bit more of a proactive meditation formula, different from Vedic meditation or other type of mindfulness exercises that are you typically designed to kind of calm the nervous system. This one is really it calms the nervous system, and he basically teaches you to connect to the quantum field so that you can connect to the source of things, step out of the 3D world. He says we perceive only 1% of reality. When animals can hear more noises, can taste more things, can see more things, we as human beings only perceive 1% of reality. And there's a whole reality outside of the 3D virtual headset that we wear when we live, and that's formed out of energy, and that's where the human material world comes from. Initially, it was just energy moving at a specific frequency, and that actually materialized into the world that we're in. But so basically, the breakthrough, it seems esoteric or a little woo-woo to talk about it this way, but when you hear the research behind everything that he brings up, and it makes total sense. So the breakthrough being, I think, basically learning how to shift your body and your mind's energy to kind of, and really the whole point being to connect to your true essence, to your soul, and step out of your body and step out of your mind in order to realize your deepest dreams. I'm happy to talk about it in more concrete terms, but I think the overarching thing is that we are energetic beings and we forget. I mean, our cells, I think, what was it? I think is only made up of 5% of material, like things. And so the rest is empty space and water to circulate energy throughout the body. And so if you shift your energy, you're able to shift your life. One last thing I'll mention is, his whole premise is that our negative emotions, whether it's stress or sadness or grief or anger, affect our biology and our physiology. And so his thing is, what if it can actually be reversed? And if the negative emotions affect our biology, it means that the positive emotions could affect our biology and our physiology. So he basically teaches you ways to feel positive emotions in order to actually change the biology of your body and get to act differently, think differently, and therefore have a different life.
Wow. I feel the same way whenever I listen, or I think I watched Limitless on Gaia, and that's by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
And like the science is so great. Science is not like my thing. So like I can't regurgitate the science, but like you're like, whoa, this is crazy. The connections that he makes to even like the Vedic sciences and the chakra centers, it just is like, it clicks in a way that you just,
Yeah.
it's a feeling again. It's like not something that sometimes you always have to put into words. I'm curious.
Yeah. I
Does
think he
he
definitely does. It's a feeling for people who are, getting immersed in it. But I think, there's definitely, universities, the federal government is interested in what he's doing just because he's gotten a lot of really good results with cancer patients and Alzheimer patients who have actually cured themselves of cancer. And it seems woo-woo, but it's actually being scientifically proven, and they're collecting data as the retreats are being held. So it's definitely, he's basically a pioneer of the next generation of just self-knowledge, and definitely something to watch for and see how it evolves. But it's definitely a technique that's worth investigating for you or listeners. Definitely am a big proponent of it.
Yeah, I love that. And one last little question before we move on from it.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what his like clearing process is, because the whole, for some, especially who are holding on to a lot of sadness and grief and, resentment and guilt and shame, who have gotten to the point of having these diseases like cancer, and
Yeah.
what is that clearing process? Because of course it's like the shifting in the positivity, but does he describe like what that process is of like how to release that heaviness?
Yeah, he does. I mean, he basically teaches you ways to, and it's not like, positive affirmations like I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy from a mental standpoint. His whole thing is you can say you're healthy, you're wealthy, you're cool, you're loved as much as you want, but you'll never actually feel it, and therefore you won't believe in it. And his whole thing is you need to feel the positive emotion that you get of the outcome of that thing happening before the event occurring. So the way he clears those negative emotions is basically by making you, his whole thing is we can have negative emotions. We all react to things happening to us, whether we're angry or sad, etc. But the whole thing is mastering how long you stay in that state. So the whole goal being try to stay as little as possible in that state and shift your state to a truly positive state that you can truly feel. And so he teaches you how to shift your state. And he goes through, like the beginning, if he says, open your heart and feel joy. You're like, or feel love. And for some people it's hard. And so, like some tips in the first few days, it's like, okay, well, think of your dog or think of your kid or think of anyone who you truly love, and and you start feeling love. And little by little, you basically open up your heart like an onion, and you can connect to those positive emotions faster.
Oh, I love that so much. It just makes so much sense too when you talk about it.
Well, hopefully, but yeah, it's truly fascinating. So we'll see.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to shift this over to you and the beautiful product that you have just created. So we were so fortunate and lucky to try this at our retreat that we had in August.
Yeah.
You created your own Kitchari packs. And what I find, I mean, so many things fascinating about what you do and what you bring to the table, because even though we're both on this Ayurveda journey, we're expressing in such different ways. And one of the things I'm fascinated by is that you were called to create a product versus a service offering, like doing consultations and things like that. I would love to hear what was the inspiration of doing a product versus a service.
Yeah. I think it was twofold. One is I currently have a service business completely outside of Ayurveda that pays the bills, and I've been doing it for the past 15 years. And so, as an entrepreneur myself, my next entrepreneurial challenge was to figure out if I could build a product and to investigate that whole business model, because it's a very different business model. And I'm 2 weeks in, so still learning. And then the second was that I know a lot of you guys that are providing amazing services, and for some reason, because of my personal desire to grow as an entrepreneur into product, and the fact that there was a market full of, full of really good practitioners that existed to help people out in different ways. I thought that I could add more value by providing a product specifically with making this Ayurvedic superfood Kitchari as easy to make as a box of mac and cheese. I think there are a few people doing it. And I think we can all coexist. We all bring different things, and, people are attracted by the product, but also the brand and what the brand stands for, whether it's mine or somebody else's. So I think there's room for a bunch of other Kitchari kits, and this is Yoom's first product. Hopefully there'll be others I'm definitely working on right now. But I think my whole thing is to try to figure out how to make, also the product is something that fits into everyone's everyday life. And it's something it's an Ayurvedic interaction in your day. Just like a tongue scraper might be, or ashwagandha might be. So I was interested in entering the everyday life that way. And one thing that I've been playing around with is how to actually couple the product with rituals or with eating meditations, with Ayurvedic rituals that I guide people through when they buy the 3-day resets. So it's a fun adventure. We'll see how it grows.
Yeah, I love that because, yes, first and foremost, everyone brings something so unique and authentic to the table. There's like so much space for all of us here and more. And I love that it's something so tangible. Rachel and I were just talking about this on a call today, that when someone's first introduced into Ayurveda, it has to be in a really tangible way usually. And usually it's connecting with food, because we think, like, of course, like diet and Ayurveda, that's what we connect with. Our food is so personal to us. So I think that that's like the best introduction for someone on their Ayurvedic journey, that's just so tangible and accessible to them.
Yeah.
What specifically, when you were like, okay, because there are not a lot of Kitchari packs out there, but how did you really want to make yours authentic? And how was almost the divine expressing itself through you with this product?
Yeah. I think, definitely I was very clear on wanting to be as authentic as possible, given that, one, I'm studying to become an Ayurvedic practitioner now. So, I'm very deeply rooted into the science itself. And so I worked with Ayurvedic practitioners and Ayurvedic chefs to help me figure out ingredients, recipes, spice blends, etc., to try to be as authentic as possible. Kitchari is it's an endlessly interpretable recipe. And so it's, there's not going to be one Kitchari blend, so to speak. But basically using Sona Masuri rice was important for me rather than basmati rice, just because it's closer. It's actually mentioned in the classical texts. It's unpolished white rice that's easier to digest. Mung dal, and then the different spices were suggested and designed with the Ayurvedic chefs and practitioners. So, I mean, being authentic is not even, it was a non-negotiable, obviously. It was just something that basically, like a lot of entrepreneurs say that, but I was designing a product that I would want to eat. So it had to be organic, it had to be non-GMO, it had to be super easy to make, because I'm a busy New Yorker who doesn't really like to spend too much time in the kitchen. It had to be, the packaging had to be compostable, because I compost. And, so I had to design the pack, the pouch that holds the ingredients separately from the actual bag toppers so that both could be separated. One is recycled, one is compostable. And so there's yeah, designing something that I would want to use on a day-to-day basis was definitely a huge driver.
Wow, I didn't know it was compostable. That's the package that holds the actual ingredients.
Yeah, the plastic pouch is actually 100% compostable. Yeah, in 30 days, and in compostable, you basically it becomes matter that worms can eat, and and
Right.
basically reintegrates into nature. If you don't compost, you don't recycle it, you basically put it in your normal trash, because in the landfill it will compost itself.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I've never heard of packaging.
Yeah, it took me a while to find that pouch, but it's an American company that makes them, and yeah, I mean, there's so many innovations in packaging that and because they're individually portioned, so that every time you want to make a kitchari, you get a fresh batch of kitchari. You can obviously make multiple at once, but it was important for me to make something that had the smallest ecological footprint as possible. And I still consume things like my spirulina powder. I just noticed, or my matcha powders in like plastic pouches that have, I don't know, I just can't, the whole thing of standing for health, but not contributing back to the health of the planet was something that was not, that had to be connected to me.
That makes me so happy because that's what I really see with a lot of the only other brand that I've seen put forth effort to this, at least visible effort that I know that they're working on, is Living Libations. When I get her packaging, of course, she has like where she has her essential oils.
The
It's still like
makeup.
glass. Living Libations, they have a couple of makeup, but it's like all beauty products.
Okay. I have
And
their rose cheek thing. So yeah. Okay.
oh, I just got that. I'm really excited to try
It's
it.
really good.
And
I
when
thought, yeah,
she gets like it's all biodegradable, like even the tape that they use when she ships everything out. And I
exactly.
just like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
I love that so
Yeah.
much. It's so
Even the
needed.
service that we send our what's it called? Packages through, it's carbon neutral and things like that. And it's more than just like, I mean, like it's not a marketing ploy. It's actually really, if it's just, it matches the way that we want to consume. And
Definitely.
yeah, so
That's incredible. What do you feel has been the biggest challenge in this whole process so far?
the biggest challenge in this whole process, I would say, is mindset.
Mm,
Figuring out how to master. I don't even know if master is the word, because I don't like that word too much, but to basically maintain a mindset that's productive enough so that you're able to think with the right perspective and approach your day as a a founder, in the best way possible. I think I spent a lot of days questioning the idea, questioning my approach, questioning a lot of things. And I realized that basically the biggest thing I could do for the business is to actually take care of my mental health and get the support I needed. And it's beyond mental health. I think it's like you're in a very specific time of your life when you're creating a company, where a lot of things are stacked against you, and not a lot of people have kind of trust in the idea, because at this point it's really just an idea, and unless you actually execute it, they don't really understand it, which is normal. You're the one who had the idea, right? So
totally.
basically priming your mental emotional states to be at a level where you're able to take on this huge ambitious project was the biggest lesson for me. Yeah. And it took me like, I had this idea a year ago, so it took me a year, and so there's a bunch of months that were spent struggling and battling with that.
Yeah. It's entrepreneurship is like the biggest spiritual journey you could ever embark on because it's your business is your energy. So it's like you have to constantly tend to yourself because that shows up directly into your business. It's like you were saying, our whole bodies are energy. So the business has
Yeah.
its own energy too. I'm curious because you had started your own business, how has those two entrepreneurial routes paralleled each other? And like now that you've kind of gone through this more deeper awareness and all these other aspects of understanding your energy and mindset, Yeah, how has that shifted? Have you noticed the parallels on those two journeys?
Yeah, and they've been very different because the other business that I have, I started it with a former coworker of mine who became my co-founder. And so I wasn't by myself, number one. Number two is something that I had done for the past, we started like 5 years ago, the business. And so I had done it 12 years or so before at different companies.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a model that I wasn't really inventing. I was applying it for ourselves, for, rather than, it was less, there were less unknowns. This one is full. I mean, that's also why I was drawn to it, to kind of, I like to put myself into challenging situations, but to kind of, to discover a new way of doing business. And for me, it's all unknowns. I've never done food. I've never done operations. So it was, what was your question again? How was it?
Yeah, how they
Energetically
parallel. Yeah, it
different?
was like an ambiguous question. It's basically just like how
No,
they have
no.
paralleled. And so, did you note it? Do you feel like since you've kind of had this more awareness and getting into the Vedas, do you feel like you've just been more aware of how your energy is your business, or do you feel like that was on the back burner before, but you just never realized it?
I think before I was pushing matter against matter. I think for Yoom, I'm definitely building up a productive energy, and I'm shifting my state and coming and operating from that place. I'm letting things, I'm less in a rush. I'm less in my masculine energy, trying to make things happen. And sometimes it's a bit disorienting because I'm like, okay, I'm not going fast enough. I'm not, there's momentum. I should pick up on it. I should like, but I think Yoom has been a personal development project for myself. So I think ultimately I will appreciate the business and the process and the everyday in the operations of the business, honestly, if I operated from a state of positive or feminine energy rather than kind of pushing kind of the New York,
Yeah.
get it done, do as much as possible, as fast as possible type of energy.
Oh God, yeah, that's our constant struggle too. It's like we're surrounded by all this masculine energy. You see it all around you, and it's like takes such willpower and strength and discipline to stay in your feminine and to really honor that. It's such a trip.
Yeah. And I think I like to also shift between the two. I think it's important to shift between the two, just like you
Definitely.
shift from being in pitta energy and vata energy or kapha, like I think the goal is to learn how to vacillate between the two and kind of leverage an energy that is right for the moment. So that's the exercise for me, has been that, rather than kind of quieting down the masculine energy. It's been about bringing in more feminine in the mix, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And something I'm curious about with product-based businesses, we were talking to the woman at Farm True, and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times I feel like you can get tempted with shortcuts and having to kind of
Yeah.
like, okay, and put, especially when you have that like desire to like, oh, I just wanted to be out and like I had it on a schedule. What have been kind of those temptations for you?
I haven't had much temptations, honestly. It wasn't negotiable to do shortcuts. So what I had to deal with was accepting the delays. I definitely
Mm.
had I'd say 3 months delay. Um, and to what I said earlier was like accepting, not, or to be less in a rush and kind of accepting how things are progressing. Um, while also doing everything I can to basically make it progress. So it's a very delicate balance. But yeah, I think the only thing that I'm currently working on is, I don't think it's a shortcut, it's more of like a beta version of the product, is that my next product, I want it to be pre-soaked, where the grains are pre-soaked, but it adds a whole layer of complications with supply chain and potential contamination happening as soon as you
Right.
add humidity. you're adding opportunities for infestation or contamination. So I'm basically working on that aspect of the supply chain to make that happen in my 2.0 version of the product. But I think for me, it was more important to come out with an authentic Kitchari recipe that was the beta version, so that people could start getting accustomed to it, and I could start learning from the market and market reactions, and figuring out, what wording works around talking about Kitchari, what recipes are resonating with people versus others. And so it's in the product space, and I think in the service space too, but I think it's all about kind of, you have one version of the product, one beta version of the product, and you're in parallel working on optimizing either your processes or the recipe itself or things like that. So I would say that I didn't make any shortcuts. But I did make a decision to come out with a beta product that wasn't 100% in my head. It was 80%. But I think, the whole point is people are willing to also be part of your journey. And that's been really rewarding and really fun to see, to kind of that aspect of co-creating with others. I've had so many ideas from people who have used the Kitchari product and who come back with ideas of toppings or ideas of how they've, cooked it. And so it's been fun, and that's energizing as an entrepreneur as well. And so I think if any of your listeners have an interest for building a business, is, the beta version is better than zero or better than perfect, because to get to perfect, you have to come out with a beta version anyway.
Definitely.
You'll learn from the market, and that's how you'll get to the perfect state.
And I find with soulpreneurs that it's so easy for them to like not even consider the shortcuts, because like you said, it's non-negotiable. Like I know I wanted these things like organic, non-GMO, for example, and it was non-negotiable if it was going to be like a price thing or whatever. That's just, I think, says so much about the heart of your business and like really sticking to your mission. And I love that through these like little collaborations that new ideas have been birthed from. Can you think of like anyone in like really particular that stood out where you're like, wow, like what an opportunity that kind of like popped out of nowhere?
I mean, there's a bunch, there's a woman talent, or even like a bunch of people who've gifted my Kitchari to people for Christmas or for the holidays. And, little things like, can I include a note? So, I'm like working with my coder to make sure that we can have a digital note at checkout, or there are things like, in my directions, I don't say to put ghee first. I say to top it off with ghee at the end. And someone like added ghee, like more of the traditional way. They add ghee and then they put all the spice, the blend in before they put the water. Another person used a rice cooker. Another one made a sweet version of the Kitchari with sweeter toppings. And so everyone has their own interpretation, which is the fun nature of Kitchari. It is an endlessly customizable one pot dish. But seeing it come to life is exciting for sure.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
What do you feel like I know we talked about mindset, but what do you feel like you are developing the most right now as a soulpreneur?
I think, I just came out of Joe Dispenza's retreat, so it might be the answer might be biased, but I would think, which has nothing, or, it's not immediately linked to the business, or you'd think that it's not. But I would say two things: opening my heart, like learning to truly tap into what I want, so I can listen to what others want as well. And then the second is that notion of not pushing and not trying to make things happen, and really trusting the timing of your business and of life in general. So kind of having that intention of, it'd be amazing if I was at Walmart and every mom in America would replace the mac and cheese with Kitchari for their kids. That's an intention that I would love to see happening with Yoom. But it's not going to happen now. And I know, but just by having the attention, I'm putting it out there in the quantum field, and I know it'll come back. in a little while. So I'll come back here on the podcast once Kitchari
Yes.
has become a mainstream of middle American families.
The new craft's going to call you up and be like, all right, we're going to do a little bit of a brand switch.
Exactly. I mean, imagine, right? Like Kitchari is soothing and comforting and
Mm,
calming to the nervous system. If busy moms who are completely overtired and overworked ate that or and fed that to their kids rather than eating something that excites the nervous system or makes them feel like crap, honestly, we
yeah.
would, our kids would be calmer, they'd do better at school, they'd sleep better, they'd have a happier soul. I think the whole mom and kid connection is very true to my heart just because of my personal
Mm,
childhood. So that's something that I would like to find a way to contribute to with you.
mm. Oh, I love that so much. I think it's so funny that like, yeah, just to like not feel like shit after having something that doesn't make you feel good. Like that's a new thought, like how much you could
Yeah.
actually get done if you had regular energy levels and optimized digestion. And I honestly think people are just disconnected, kind of like bringing this full circle to like the feeling and being heart open. And like they have just kind of like shut themselves out from that. And I'm sure that's what you have discovered too, and why you want to bring in more of that meditation and that mindfulness piece, because that will open them up to knowing like I do feel so much better and I can actually notice that subtle shift from just eating something so different. Do you
Yeah.
have any other ideas that you want to share with us on where you see you going?
Yeah, I've got a bunch. I think, Kitchari is, yeah, like just to finish on your thought earlier of, that the notion of eating or making comfort food that's actually comfortable after eating it is something that's truly a driver for me. But yeah, the future of Yoom, truthfully, I'm still kind of refining it. But what started Yoom, or what started my work on Yoom, is the belief that the world is truly better off when people take care of themselves. When you feel good, everyone wins. So when your inner world is at ease, when you're grounded, that's when and only then that you can focus on putting your energy outwards and contributing to a better world for yourself, but also for others. And so our mission until now has been to nourish your inner happy. And the quickest way to bring your body and mind into that state of inner happy is through the foods that you eat. And so that's why we started with making it deliciously easy to cook those high vibe meals on a daily basis. And I think there's endless spice combinations that we can put in to the Kitchari blend, and different grain combinations that we could design to address specific needs and specific health benefits. So I'm going to focus on that. There's a lot to do around spice blends, the churnas, the traditional churnas in Ayurveda, that we can democratize as well. But I think like continuing to democratize mindful eating overall is going to be a mission. We started building snackable rituals for mindful eating. So things that, like super simple gestures that you can do before eating, because there are a lot of benefits to doing that. It makes a huge difference in how you experience and appreciate the food you eat. It makes a big difference in how you appreciate yourself and others as well. It brings you in the present moment, makes the food actually more tasty, more flavorful, and you eat more intuitively and more mindful if you're looking to, figure out your digestion or your weight issues, etc. So that's why all of our kitcheries come with, a choice of super simple mealtime rituals that everyone can do, even the busiest. And I think that's definitely something that's hugely of interest. How do you actually make that doable for the modern person is a challenge. And that's one that I'm investigating now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, your product nails all of that. It's so accessible and something so quick and easy that people can see that shift right away. I think that is the beauty of diet and food, of why people are so attracted to it, because it's something that you're already doing and something that you can feel a change like night and day just by shifting. And for our listeners, I'm sure you're already following Yoom on Instagram. She is We Are Yoom on Instagram and has the literally best photos ever, like the most vibrant colors. Check out those pointed toes on some of her poses.
Now I have an extra point thinking of you on my next post. I'm like, Angelica will be checking out my points. So
check out that arch and definitely check out her Kitchari packs because they're so delicious and it's so accessible. I love that you have the 3-day reset. We actually included that in our holiday gift guide because I know too, like around the holidays, even if you just had like one thing and you like want to get back to like feeling optimal digestion, all it takes is that 3-day reset and you're like feeling amazing. Do you, I'd love to hear from
without
you, like
starving or having energy crashes or, you know, I think that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All the other bad habits that we have around the holidays and when things go awry. Do you have any other shares and ways that our people can connect with you and get your Kitchari?
Yeah, I think Instagram, we are Yoom or weareyoom.com on my site. I'm going to start doing a bunch of partnerships with yoga studios, starting with New York. So if you're in New York City, you'll be able to find it there. But really the easiest is to go on weareyoom.com. And there's a bunch of options. You can either get a 3-pack with 3 Kitcharis if you want to taste and feel that what it's like, or you could get a 10-pack or a 3-day reset that comes with Ayurvedic detox teas as well as guided rituals for aligning the body, mind, and soul throughout the 3 days. So there's a choice. And if you have specific questions, feel free to DM me. I'm very frequently on Instagram. Now that I'm out of the 1-week meditation, it was the first time in my life that I wasn't on my phone on a daily basis, and it was so nice. But
I
will.
Good for you.
But I'm excited to also be back to the 3D world and interact with people. So DM me anytime for sure.
I love it. We'll have the link in the show notes for all of that goodness. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and your energy. I can feel that full week reset for you. You just got this like fresh and clear energy. It must have, when we meditate before we record always, and when we were in meditation, I was like, oh my God, this just like feels so good to be in your energy. So I'm so happy for you.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you for having me. I love the work that you and Rachel do. So thanks so much for having me. And I look forward to all the other upcoming episodes on your podcast.
Yeah, can't wait to have you back. All right,
thanks,
everyone.
Angelica.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to you soon.